Welcome back to Namaste React. This is episode 10, जो दिखता है सो बिकता है. In this episode, we are going to see that how we can make our app look beautiful, right? When I say the app look beautiful, that means we are going to see that how we can add styles to our application, how we can add CSS to our applications, and I am going to cover various ways how you can apply CSS to our application, and then we will pick a way, right? We will pick a CSS framework that we will use to add styles for our whole app. In this episode, we are going to make our app look very beautiful, right? Till now, in this whole 9 episodes, I was just focusing upon writing the code and making our code work properly, right? We were learning about the internals of React, right? We were seeing that how we can build features inside React. But today, in this episode, we are going to make our app look very beautiful. Let us just start with opening our project into our VS Code. Let's just start our project. Let me just make it a little big and let me start it. npm start, right? When I run npm start, that means our server runs, and let us just open it up on the browser, right? So here we are. So here we have our app, right? And we have built this app. We have made a lot of features inside this app. And in this episode, we are going to see that how we can make our app look beautiful, right? Right now it is looking a little ugly, right? Here and there, everything is clumsy. Here and there, it's not looking very beautiful, right? Today, I am going to show you that how we can add CSS to our application, right? And what are various ways to add CSS to our application. So just pay attention and keep listening to me. Right? So let me tell you the first way of writing CSS. The first way of writing CSS is the one which we were already using, right? So we had a index.css file, right? And we used to put all these CSS into this file, isn't it? That is a easier way. That is a very basic naive way of putting CSS. Right? So this is how we were using CSS, right? We used to have classes inside our JSX, right? And these class name used to be the class inside our HTML, right? So this was a logo class for this img tag, and we can put in some CSS onto this class name, and it used to apply on this image, right? Which we load over here. So similarly, one way is to add CSS like this. So this is the first way. The second way to add CSS is to use SAS and SCSS, right? SASS and SCSS. People who don't know what is SCSS and SASS, please go ahead and just please Google it and just see it, right? What is SAS and SCSS? So let me tell you in a short brief syntax, right? A short brief statement that what is SCSS and SASS. So basically, you can assume that SAS is like writing CSS with some superpowers, right? It adds some superpowers to CSS, right? The way we write CSS over here, SAS adds some superpowers to CSS, and writing CSS becomes a little more advanced and a little more easy when we write using SASS and SCSS, right? SASS and SCSS, right? Note it down and please go ahead and see it, right? A lot of people I know who are watching this would already know about this, but people who don't know about this, please go ahead and see what is SCSS and what is SAS, right? But let me tell you, this is not a recommended way to write CSS, right? When your application grows big, these writing styles does not scale well. These are not used in industry production ready application, right? Companies do not use SAS or CSS like this, right? People are not writing like this. This is just a way we used to add CSS to our app, but this is not a recommended way. Then you might ask, Akshay, what is a recommended way and what actually developers use inside big companies, right? So let me tell you, there is one more way to add CSS to our application that is commonly used with React, that is known as styled components, right? Styled components. So styled components is another way to add CSS, and let me tell you that when I used to work in Uber, right? So in Uber, our components used to be styled components. We used to use styled components, right? This styled component to write CSS for our components. Got it? So please go ahead, right? in this episode, in this series, in Namaste React, I'm not going to teach you styled components. I'm not going to teach you SASS and SCSS. I'm not going to teach you normal CSS, right? We have already written normal CSS. I am going to teach you Tailwind CSS, right? But before coming on to Tailwind CSS, let me tell you all the ways of writing CSS, right? Which are popularly used inside React, right? So this is a very common scenario, right? See, if you will see, right? Lot of big companies use styled components. This is the one, styled components is the one you can choose to use along with your React application if you don't choose other ones, right? So style components is a way. So so just see the syntax, right? So here is a button component, and this is how you write style over here, right? If you are interested to learn more about style components, just write stylecomponents.com and go ahead and check out their examples. It's very easy to use and easy to get started with, right? Read the documentation out. After style components, there is one more way how we can add CSS to our files, or how we can make our app look beautiful, right? So the different ways are using libraries and frameworks, different type of libraries and frameworks, right? Let me tell you that you must have heard of something known as Material UI. Have you heard of it? Have you heard of Bootstrap? Have you heard of Ant Design? Have you heard of Chakra UI? Right? So note down all these things, right? There is something known as Material UI, right? Material UI, right? So this is a way we can make our app look beautiful. So this is basically a React component library which gives you component out of the box. Got it? So a lot of big companies use similar kind of libraries or frameworks. Let me repeat it once again. A lot of big companies, right? They use different libraries and frameworks which are used. These are like CSS libraries and frameworks, right? And these libraries and frameworks makes our life very, very, very easy, right? So basically let me show it to you, right? If I go to their website, so basically they give you pre-styled components, right? They give you components. They basically export components which already are beautiful. Got it? So suppose if you have to create a button, right? So suppose this is our application, our button looks very ugly, right? So over here, if you use the buttons from Material UI, right? Let me show it to you. Those are already beautiful looking buttons, right? If you go to components over here, so basically what we do is, instead of using our own button tag, we will use button like this, right? This button is coming from Material UI, and those button will look like this, right? It already has a pre-built CSS inside int, right? So you don't have to worry about writing CSS, writing this hover, right? Changing the color on hover, making the borders round, and you don't have to worry about any CSS. You just have to import this button and everything works out of the box. This is the beautiful thing about libraries and CSS frameworks, right? So you already get pre-built components, right? Listen to me very carefully. You get pre-built components. You just import into your app and you build a button, right? Which is already beautiful. You don't have to worry about putting colors to it and making it round corners and changing the fonts and all that stuff, right? Everything comes out of the box, right? Similar to Material UI, Material UI is much used, right? It is very popular in the UI community, and a lot of companies use Material UI, right? Along with Material UI, people use Bootstrap, right? Search for Bootstrap, right? Bootstrap is another one. Bootstrap is another popular HTML, CSS and JS library. Over here also, right? It gives you custom ways to style your components, right? Use it if you want to. See the example. Another one is Chakra UI. Why I am telling you all this, right? I am telling you because you should know various options, right? You should know various options. Go ahead, explore them, see which one do you like a lot. Write it down in the comments that which one are you using it already, or which one do you like more, right? Go ahead, check out all of them and then make a wise decision which one you want to use, right? All of these frameworks and libraries do one and the same thing, right? All the components that you will see inside Bootstrap is available inside Chakra UI, is available inside different type of libraries and frameworks. But go ahead and see which one appeals to you, which one look better to you, right? They have their own way of designing things. Okay, so go ahead and make an informed decision for yourself. I am just telling you various ways to put CSS into your app, right? I am not basically, what you'll say, pushing one over the other, right? I have used a lot of them. I have used Material UI in production. I have used Bootstrap. I have used styled components. I haven't used Chakra UI, but I am just telling you that these are various way. Go ahead, explore Chakra UI. Along with Chakra UI, there is one more and design, right? There is one more which is known as and design, right? This is world's second most popular React UI library. I don't know why they claim to be second most popular and what is the first. I don't know basically, but whatever it is. So go ahead, see this. I'm not sure why it is not loading. Their app is a little slow, I guess, right? I'm not sure why it is not loading, but go ahead to their website and see. And design is another UI framework which people use, right? So you can use any of these frameworks, right, to build it. But you must be thinking that, Akshay, why are you rushing things up? You have not dived deep into any of these libraries or framework. Let me tell you that these are alternatives which I was telling you. Now, let me tell you about the thing, let me tell you about the way that I am going to use today in this episode. Right? So, in this episode, in Namaste React, I want to teach you how to style your components using Tailwind CSS. So basically, we learnt various ways. Before coming on to Tailwind CSS, let me revise what are the ways we studied. One is like normal CSS that we were using since 9 episodes, right? Normal CSS. Then SCSS and SAS, SASS and SCSS, right? That is another way. The third one is styled components. The fourth one is using those different libraries and frameworks, right? Like Bootstrap, Material UI, Chakra UI, and Design. There are a lot more, right? But these are the popular ones. And then among all these, right, after all these ways, we also have something which is trending today in the front-end community, which is a latest framework which has come out and gaining a lot of traction. That is Tailwind CSS. And in this episode, I am going to dive deep into Tailwind CSS. I want to take Tailwind CSS as the primary CSS framework that we will use to customize our application, to make our application look cool, right? So let's explore Tailwind CSS. Now you must be thinking, Akshay, right? Should we always use Tailwind CSS? No. I am just saying that I will teach you what is Tailwind CSS. Go ahead, try to use Tailwind CSS in your project and make an informed decision for yourself. I am not biased towards Tailwind, or I am not biased towards any other way of writing CSS. It's your call what you want to use. But in this episode, in Namaste React, I will focus upon Tailwind CSS. Okay, so let's get started with Tailwind CSS, right? Take a pause over here, take a break at this moment in this video, go ahead, check out all the previous ways of writing CSS, right? Explore it. Explore different websites of Material UI and Design, Chakra UI, Bootstrap, see all of them, right? Go to their website, see what they are offering, and then afterwards come back over here. Then we will start with our fresh minds to start learning Tailwind CSS, right? So take a break and we will come back soon and we will start learning Tailwind CSS and we'll start making this app look more and more beautiful. Okay, so let's take a break. Welcome back, my dear friends. Now let us see how we can use Tailwind CSS, what Tailwind CSS has to offer, what is different in Tailwind CSS than writing normal CSS. We will explore a lot of new things. So take down notes while I teach you, right? And you will love this framework, right? So what is Tailwind first of all, right? So let me just open the website of Tailwind CSS. So Tailwind CSS, right? If you will see the website, it is used, right? See what Tailwind CSS has to say, right? So it says that rapidly build modern websites without ever leaving your HTML. What does that mean? Tailwind CSS says that you don't have to leave your HTML file, or you don't have to leave your JSX over here, right? this is like a HTML for us, right? JSX. So similarly, you don't have to leave your JSX and you can still style your components without moving and switching between the files, right? You don't have to move back and forth. So we will see that in action. But now you must be wondering that how we can do that, right? How, if we don't write CSS inside our CSS file, then how do we modify our components? So now, without wasting any time in just talking and blabbering about the theory of Tailwind CSS, let us just go and start using Tailwind CSS. That is the best way to learn, right? So first of all, we will have to configure our Tailwind CSS into our React project. Right? So for that, go to their website, click on get started, and let me show you how you can configure your Tailwind CSS with your project. Let me first of all tell you that Tailwind CSS is not just a React thing. It works along with React, but it also works with all the frameworks available, right? It's a very generic CSS framework. It works with React, it works with Angular, it works with different other UI frameworks, it works with normal HTML, CSS, JavaScript also. Okay, so there are various ways to install Tailwind CSS, right? So, but we have to install it in a different way, right? This is not a normal installation that we have to do. Basically, we will go to framework guides and we will choose Parcel. Because we are using Parcel, right? So we will have to choose Parcel over here, right? Choose accordingly, right? So if you are using a Create React app, just choose Create React app. If you are using Angular, use Angular guide. If you are using Next, use Next guide, right? So because our project uses Parcel, so I am clicking on Parcel and I will see how to install Tailwind CSS with Parcel. Got it? So here is where I have to go here and follow these steps, right? So let me follow it along with you. So basically, first of all, it says that how to create your project. We already have a project, so ignore this, right? So then how to install Tailwind CSS. So basically it comes as a package, right? So to install Tailwind CSS, we will install Tailwind CSS and we will install Post CSS, right? So I'll tell you what these things are, but let me just copy it and let us run these commands into our terminal, okay? So let me just close this app first of all, and let me just copy paste this, right? And enter, right? So now this is basically installing two packages for us, Tailwind CSS and Post CSS. Now let me tell you what is the second package. Tailwind CSS we understood, right? Tailwind CSS is like a normal Tailwind CSS. What is Post CSS? So let me tell you this Post CSS that we have installed. Let me tell you what is Post CSS. Let me write it down, right? So see this. Post CSS is a tool for transforming CSS with JavaScript. Basically, if you have to transform your CSS inside JavaScript, you use Post CSS. So Tailwind CSS uses Post CSS behind the scenes. So you don't have to study differently what is Post CSS. You just need to know that what is Post CSS, but you don't have to specifically learn Post CSS to start using Tailwind CSS. Tailwind CSS behind the scenes uses Post CSS, so no need to worry about that, right? So but for now, just understand that Tailwind Post CSS is a tool for transforming CSS along with JavaScript, and Tailwind CSS uses this, right? So now this is what we installed. We installed Tailwind CSS, we installed Post CSS, and then we did npx tailwind init, right? When you did npx tailwind init, right? Npx tailwind init, remember this is npx. Remember, we used npx earlier also. So npx means we are invoking, we are executing Tailwind CSS, right? So we did npx, right? npx tailwind CSS init. That means we are initializing the Tailwind CSS into a repository. Whenever we do npx tailwind init, right? When we did this npx tailwind init, it will create a tailwind.config.js for us. It created a file, it created a new file for us, which is known as tailwind.config.js, right? This is the configuration file for our Tailwind CSS, right? So this is the configuration file which is automatically created, right? When we execute this package using npx tailwind CSS init, right? So now we have got a configuration for our Tailwind. Now we will create a configuration for our Post CSS also. Okay, so we will have to create our Post CSS file also, right? A configuration file for Post CSS also, and it says that create a .post CSS rc file. right? How to create that? So go on to the root section and create a new file which is post cssrc. So post cssrc is a configuration file for post css, right? We are using Tailwind, we are using post css. So post cssrc is configuration for post css. Tailwind.config.js is the configuration for Tailwind, right? We have to configure Tailwind, we have to configure post css. Got it? Both of these two. So in post cssrc, let us go back. It says that you have to write this, right? So you have to basically copy this thing, right, and just paste it over here. This means that post cssrc, it means that you have to tell post cssrc that we are using Tailwind over here. So what will post cssrc do? It, like Tailwind, you know, if you have to use Tailwind, right? So your parcel need to use post cssrc to read Tailwind. Got it? Listen to me carefully. Because we are using parcel, right? So parcel, your bundler will use post cssrc, right? Your post cssrc is used to understand Tailwind, right? So post cssrc is kind of a way that our projects understand what is written inside Tailwind. Got it? So that is how you can use it. That is all you need to understand for post CSS for writing Tailwind, right? So basically in this configuration, we are just telling that we are using Tailwind in our project, and please parcel understand Tailwind, right? Wherever you find Tailwind classes, understand it. That's all is the way, that is what we are doing in this file, right? So this is our configuration file for post CSS, right? Post CSS RC file. That's all. Let's close this. That's all we need for post CSS. Now let us configure our Tailwind. So you must be thinking we already have this configuration, right? But there is a slight modification that we have to do in our Tailwind config file as well. What is that modification? It says that inside our content we need to write this, right? There is content over here. We need to give a configuration, this configuration, right? What is this configuration doing? This configuration means that this content attribute takes a array, right? Takes a list of all the files where I can use my Tailwind CSS. Right? This array takes the configuration that what all places are we going to use Tailwind, right? So with this regex kind of an expression, we are telling Tailwind that Tailwind can be used inside our HTML files, Tailwind can be used inside our JS files, Tailwind can be used inside our TS files, Tailwind can be used inside our .jsx files, Tailwind can be used inside TSX files. So right now we are saying that anywhere in your project, wherever you find any of these files, HTML file, JS file, TS file, JSX file, TSX files, you can find Tailwind anywhere. So this is a way we are telling our project that we can use Tailwind in any of these files which are using this extension, right? So see, any files which is inside our src folder and ****, that means anywhere under our src folder and have one of these extensions, we can use Tailwind over there, right? So basically when we say that, now our Tailwind configuration is done. Now our project will track where our Tailwind classes are there, and it will automatically pick up and understand Tailwind CSS as we use it. Now you must be thinking, Akshay, why do we need to give it JSX, TSX and all these things? We have not created any TS file. We have not created any JSX. We have not created any TSX. Yes, you don't need to. You can omit this, right? So Tailwind CSS, right? You can just say, we just want to use our CSS or Tailwind CSS inside our HTML JS file. That's completely fine, right? Over here, they have given it because they don't know, right? Whether you are using TypeScript or whether you are using JSX or JS extension, whatever, right? They have just given you a generic configuration over here, right? So right now I am just using HTML and JS files in my project. So that is why let me just keep my HTML and JS file over here as well. Okay, so that's where we use HTML and JS file, we will use Tailwind CSS, right? So this is the configuration done for Tailwind, done for post CSS. So right now, let me recap it once again. Till now, what we have done is, first of all, I have installed my Tailwind CSS and Post CSS, right? Using npm install. Then we wrote npx Tailwind CSS in it. That created a configuration, right? That created a configuration for our Tailwind, right? Tailwind.config.file. Then we created a configuration for Post CSS. Got it? That was the third step. Then one more step was to just add this content, right? This is the place where we add what files we can find Tailwind CSS in. Got it? So this is one thing. And then now what else we should do? We have to write this inside our index.css file. We have to write this inside our index.css files. That means we are kind of importing our Tailwind CSS into our CSS file, right? Let me tell you one more thing. After this point in our project, let me just do a Control A, delete everything inside my index.css. I have deleted all the styles that I wrote till now in our project. I have deleted everything and I will just write 3 lines. This is basically kind of importing Tailwind into your index.css file. Right? This is basically importing your Tailwind into your CSS file. And from this point onwards in my project, I will not write a single word inside my CSS file. Yes, you must be thinking what it is, right? But let me tell you, I will not be touching my index.css files ever again in my project. Ever again. Okay, so these are the only 3 lines that you have to write inside your index.css. After writing these 3 files, let me just close my index.css file and let me tell you, my dear friends, our project is now configured to use Tailwind, right? So now this is all the configuration that we needed, and now we will just start using Tailwind CSS in our projects, right? And let me tell you, to check, let us just check whether we have installed Tailwind CSS properly or not. I am just saving my files, right? And let me just start my project once again. I will write npm start once again. And if I write npm start, let me go back to our app. If I refresh my page, oh my God, did you see this? Everything has been broken now. Now we have Tailwind in our web application. We have messed up everything, right? All the UI is messed up, but we have Tailwind CSS in our project configured, right? Now I will show you how we can customize and make our app look beautiful using Tailwind. Now we will start using Tailwind, but at this point, I want you all to take a break. Take a pause at this moment. Before I start writing Tailwind, just take a break and try to set up Tailwind in your project, right? You might face some issues. You might face some issues over here while writing those commands. Like here and there, some bugs over here. If you will face any issues, just Google search, right? Try to find it on Stack Overflow or somewhere or the other. Please configure Tailwind, but most of the times you will be able to solve it properly. Just follow this guide, right? Go to Tailwind's website, try to just follow whatever it is showing over here, right? And everything will be installed successfully. Once you have installed Tailwind CSS successfully and your page looks something like this, right? It's looking ugly, right? It's looking distorted. Don't you worry, right? Don't you worry, but please just install Tailwind. Come back over here. Your terminal should be clean, right? Your terminal should be clean. No errors over here. No errors in your console, right? Your console should not have any errors. If you have any errors in your console, then just fix it. If you have any errors in your terminal, then fix it. And once you are done with that, please come back over here, right? Let's take a break. Come back and pause the video over here, configure your Tailwind, and then come back, and then we will continue to use Tailwind CSS into our project. We will actually write and modify our application and make it look beautiful using Tailwind. Okay, so see you very soon. Let's get back. Welcome back, my dear friends. Now let us just start using Tailwind CSS into our project. Okay, so let me tell you that how Tailwind CSS works, right? It works very different than normal CSS, right? In normal CSS, we used to just write some class name over here, and then we used to add CSS for these class name into our index.css file. But over here we are not going to do like that, right? How we are going to put CSS is, we are going to put CSS using class names, right? So Tailwind basically offers you a class name for every CSS that you can put inside your app. Let me repeat it once again. Tailwind CSS gives you class names automatically for every CSS that you would want to write into your app. What does it mean? So suppose, let me tell you, so suppose if you want to make the background of your app red, so there is a separate different class which Tailwind CSS gives you that you can directly use it over here. Suppose if you want to increase the width of your image, there is a separate class that Tailwind CSS gives you that you have to use it over there. Right? Now it might be sounding confusing, but let me tell you what I am trying to say. Right? So, you know how our thought process will work when using Tailwind? It will work exactly the same how our thought process was working when we were using normal CSS files. Right? How we used to think? So how we used to think, suppose let us just try to write CSS for our header component, right? This is our header component. Let us try to write CSS for this header component. How do we write? First of all, we will have to make our header component a flexbox, right? So that our components, right, or our tabs or our divs inside the header component aligns properly, right? So how to make a div as flex? So we just have to write flex over here, right? If I write the class name as flex, that means our div will become flex. See this, they came one after the other, right? They came side by side. That means our div became flex, right? So let me show it to you over here also, right? So where is our header component? So where is our header div? There must be a header div over here, right? Yes, see this is our header div, right? This is our header div, and when we write flex over here, so see this, Tailwind CSS basically added display flex to it, right? So you don't have to go to index.css and write flex, right? Display flex over there. You just have to put this class name flex and it will make your div as flex. So now, suppose you want to decrease the width of this logo, right? We have this logo with us. Suppose if you want to decrease the width of this logo, how can you decrease the width of this image? Right? So let me tell you that there is another class that we can use to decrease and increase the width of this logo. Right? What is that class? We will write something known as W hyphen. Right? W hyphen, and it will give you different parameters. Right? Suppose if I write W hyphen 8. Right, W hyphen 8, and let me save this file, right? If I go back to my browser, see this, the image become very small. Did you see this? It is not even visible over here, barely visible. Suppose if I write W hyphen 24, right, instead of 8, see this, if I save this, it became a little big, isn't it? Did you see it? It is still very small, right? Let us make it W hyphen 56, right? And let me save it to you. Right? It will become a little more big. Now it is looking better, right? Now it is looking better. It looks like a logo. So let us just keep this. So basically, if you will write W hyphen something, W hyphen 56, that means it will just add the width to your image. Let us see what width it has added to our image. If I go over here, the class is W hyphen 56, and it added the width of 14 rem to it. 14 rem. So now this is how you add width over here by writing W hyphen. Let me now tell you, let us now see all the other things, right? How we do it. If it is sounding confusing to you, don't worry. I will explain you a lot more. But for now, just see that what am I trying to do, right? How am I adding CSS to my application? So suppose, right, this is this UL, right? This is the unordered list, right? And there are the list items. So let us just make this list items also like this UL also flex, right? So that they come over here, right? So let's make this UL flex. How do I make it UL flex? I will add a class name flex to it, right? So if I add flex, see this. They came in like this, right? We wanted it like this. Now suppose if you want to add space between these divs, right? So suppose if I want to add space between this logo and this UL, right? So what I'll do is I will use justify space between. Remember, we can use justify space between and they will move apart, right? And this will go on the right hand side. How do I do that, right? So let me go back to Tailwind CSS and let me write, right? How do I write justify content? Justify content, right? So if I go to justify content and I have to write justify content space between. So what class I have to use? I have to use justify between, right? So I will just use a class name justify between over here, right? Between. So if I write justify between, let me save it up and let me go back to, see this, it became apart, right? Display flex and then justify content space between. So they moved apart from each other, right? It aligned to the right. Now in this UL, right, let me also give it some padding margin, right? Let me now show you how to give padding margin. So instead of going back and forth, I remember it, right? How to give padding margin, I will tell it to you. So if I have to give some padding margin to my UL, right? So I will give it some padding of, right? Padding of 4, right? If I write p-4, it will give it some padding. See this, right? It give it some padding from top, bottom, left, right, right? And let us also, if I have to give it margin, then I will give it something like this, m-4, right? If I give it m-4 and if I save it, it will give it some margin, right? Let me show it to you. If I inspect it, right? If I inspect it and let me go to the UL, see this, it gave it padding 1 rem and it gave margin of 1 rem as well, right? So this is how you give padding and margin to any div, right? Or any piece of container, right? Which you want to give, right? Now you must be thinking that, Akshay, are you mad? What? We have to apply some CSS and we have to constantly go to Tailwind's website and keep on searching for CSS equivalent classes and then just put it into our HTML, and like, this is just making our life more tough. Is Tailwind making our life easier or is it making it tough? Let me tell you, my dear friends, you know, there is an initial learning curve in Tailwind, right? Initial learning curve. But as you go ahead, as you start writing these class names, you just get better at it. You know, once you will write classes once or twice, right? Once you will write these classes once or twice, then you know, next time they just become easier and easier. Right? Now it is very tough for me to explain you that, like, you must not be believing in me, right? You must be thinking, Akshay, it's not possible, right? It is just a lot of things to remember. What are the class names? If I write W, that means width. If I write M, that means margin. If I write P, that means padding. But trust me, my dear friends, once you start using Tailwind, your life will become easier. Once you start doing CSS more and more in Tailwind, you will just get habitual of writing these classes. It will become a piece of cake for you. It just comes with initial learning curve. And let me also give you an important thing, important tool, important superpower when you are using Tailwind, right? That is known as, right, that will make your life very, very easy while you are using Tailwind. That is known as Tailwind VS Code extension, right? So there is a Tailwind VS Code extension that is known as Tailwind CSS IntelliSense. Install this in your VS Code. You know, if this extension was not there, I would have never used Tailwind. Right? So basically, the process of let me just show you what this extension does for it. Right? So go to installed extension, write Tailwind IntelliSense, right? IntelliSense, you can install it from here or you can install it from there, right? From the browser you can download and put it up in VS Code, right? You can just install it from here, right? This is Tailwind CSS IntelliSense, which is there by Tailwind Labs, right? I am just enabling it, and let me just reload my browser. I am just enabling it, and let me just go back, right? Once I have my extension with us, This extension, once you install and enable it, it will give you superpowers, my dear friends. Now, you don't have to go to Tailwind's website again and again. You don't have to go to Tailwind's website again and again, but you will get Tailwind class suggestions as in when you are writing code. You will get Tailwind class suggestions as in when you are writing code. Suppose if I want to make the background as pink, I will start writing pink over here. See this. If I write pink over here, right? If I write pink over here, see this. It automatically shows us different classes that I can use. If I write BG Pink 50, BG Pink 100, BG Pink 200, this is giving us different colors that I can, different shade of pink that I can put as background. And it also shows that what CSS it is using, right? Let me use like BG Pink 100, right? If I use BG Pink 100 and if I hover onto this class, see this. This extension is doing this powerful thing for us. Suppose if you want to find out what class is doing what, right? So you can just hover onto that class name and it shows you what exactly CSS is going to be put inside our HTML, right? If I will write BG Pink 100, it will put in this background color of BG Pink, right? It lighter shade of pink to our HTML. Let us just see what is there inside W56, right? If I forgot what is there in W56, just hover onto this. This extension will tell you what is this class doing. This class is putting a width of 14 rem. Isn't it cool? Right? This extension will tell you what this class is actually doing behind the scenes, and this extension will also suggest you what classes you have to use. Right? Suppose if you forget the name of this class. Got it? So this is how powerful this extension is. It just makes our life easier. Right? Let me just save it and let us go back. See this. Our header has become pink now. Isn't it? Our header has become pink now. Let us try to explore more, right? Suppose if I have to give some shadow to my header. Why it is white? It is because this is the image, right? This is full image. This image is whole square. That is why it is not taking it full. Got it, right? If we change the image to PNG or something, right? I think this does not have a transparent background. If this had a transparent background, it would have also become pink. Got it? This is a square image. So anyways, right? So let us just see how to put in shadow. Now I will not see the code for shadow in my Tailwind CSS website. I will just try to use my IntelliSense, right? This Tailwind extension to find out how to put shadow, right? Suppose if I want to put shadow inside my header, how do I put it, right? Let's go over here. If I start writing, right, Tailwind starts giving me suggestions, right? If I will write shadow, SHADOW, right? It shows me, right? Do you see this? Shadow SM, Shadow MD, Shadow LG. So what does this mean is Shadow SM. So whenever you will hear the word SM, this SM means small, MD means medium, LG means large, XL means extra large, 2XL means double extra large. These are just the nomenclature which Tailwind uses, right? So basically, if you forget this, right, you can just write shadow and you can write shadow LG. Let's see shadow large. What happens if you write shadow large? And let me save it. If I go back, see this. Do you see the shadows over here? It has made a shadow underneath this header. Suppose if I have to give margin, right? So if I write M hyphen, right, it gives me all the values that I can use. See this on the right hand side. If you have to give margin 1 rem, 1.25 rem, it gives you, right? And it tells you what all variables you can use, right? Whether can you use 20, 24, 28, 32, it gives you suggestions for everything. It will make your life very, very easy. So let's give us margin of 2, right? Margin M2, right? M2 means margin of 0.5 rem. That means 8px. Let's give this, right? Let me save it. So if we give margin of 2px, see this, right? It has taken the margin of 2px all around. So right now this M2 has given margin all around. Suppose if I just had to give margin to bottom, right? So how do I give margin bottom? It's very easy, right? You will have to write MB. MB means margin bottom. Okay. So if I have to give margin bottom, I will write MB2. That means I will give margin bottom 0.5 REM. It's easy. It's easy. I'm telling you, once you start using it, it is very, very easy. Right? If I have to give you margin on the top, MT. Right? Margin on the right, MR. Margin on the left, ML. Right? It's very easy. Right? Similarly, if I have to give padding on the right, PR. Right? If I give PR0, PR1, PR2. Similarly, if I have to give padding on the left, PL. Suppose if I have to give padding on the left and right, right? On the sides, right? On the width sides, right? On the what you'll say, on the horizontal axis, right? So what I'll do, I will write PX. PX means it will give padding to the left and the right. PX means on the x-axis. PX means on the x-axis. If I have to give padding to left and right together, then I will use PX. If I have to just give to right, I will use PR. Right? So this is the nomenclature that we can use inside our JSX, and these CSS classes will makes us write CSS for our whole application like this using just these classes. Now you must be thinking that Akshay, it is very, very, very confusing for me. But to clear your confusion, I think we just have to use it a lot, right? Let me just keep using this Tailwind CSS and let us just build something, right? Let us try to create the UI and then let us see that whether it has advantages or disadvantages. If you're not liking it right now, don't worry. If you're liking it, then that is amazing. If you're don't liking it, don't worry. Keep seeing it, right? Let me make our UI look more beautiful and let us see, right, how much effort it is taking for us, right? And that is when later on we will decide for it, right? So we have created this header. Let us try to create this search bar also, right? So right now we have this search bar, right? Let me just give it some padding margin or something, right? To our so we are done with header, right? Or maybe let us just customize our header a little more, right? So let's make it center aligned from top and bottom. This is sticking to each other and it is not aligned properly, right? Let us make it center aligned from top and bottom. How do we do that? If we are using flex, basically when we use flex, we can do align items to center, right? That will align it vertically, isn't it? So let us just go to this nav items, and over here I can use flex, right? So if I use flex over here, and if I use align item center, right? So how to do item center. So if I write align item center, that means I am putting items align item center, right? So the class name is item center. Let me do that and let me see if it works. Let me save it. Yep, see this. Now it has come like this. Now what I have to do is these are sticking to each other. So I have to give padding to each of them, but in x-axis. Right? Is it making sense to you? I have to give padding to each of these LIs, right? LI list items, right? And I have to give it on x-axis, not on y-axis, just x-axis, right? How do I give it padding? Right? Padding on x-axis to all these LIs. So I can just use a class name, right? I can use a class name padding on x-axis of and x-axis of, let me give it px4, right? px4 means 1 rem, right? So if I give it, see this online status has got padding of 1 px both the sides, right? Similarly, you can put this class name to all of them. So let us just give this class name to all of them, right? All these li, all these list items, I am just giving this class name to all these list items, right? If I give it padding to all these list items, right? Let's give it to cart as well. So if I save it, now do you see? Those have taken, all of this has taken padding on x-axis of 1 rem. Got it? Now it is looking a little much better, right? Now this is looking much better. let me just go on to style this search input box as well, right? So now let us just style this input box. So let us go to input box. Where is our input box? It's inside body, right? Let's go to body component now. And in my body component, where is it? Here is the input box, right? This is the search. Okay, so first of all, let us give it padding margin, right? So let's give it margin M4 P4, right? So I give it M4 P4, right? Let me save it and see how it looks, right? We have got this padding margin over here. Amazing, isn't it? So we have got this padding margin. Now let us style this input box, right? Right now it is looking very ugly. Oh my God, let's go back. I clicked onto something. I have this input box, right? Let's give it like some borders, isn't it? I think we should give it some borders. I should give it some borders to my input box. So I will do border, and then I will write border hyphen solid, right? Something like that. Border solid, right? I will give it a solid border, and I will give it border black or something, right? Border black. Got it? So I have given it border, right? Now my input box is much more visible. Now let us make this search button look like a button, right? It's not looking like a button. How do I make my search look like a button, right? Let's try to do it. So this is a button. Let's write some CSS to this button, right? Class name, right? How do I write it? Let me give it some padding. First of all, let's give it padding of 4. Right, let's give it padding of 4, and let's make that button as green color. Okay, let's give it BG of green, right? If I write BG green, and let me give it BG green of 100, right? Let me give it background of green of 100, right? And let's give it margin also, right? If I give it margin of 4, right? Let's give it M4, right? Not margin of 4, M4, that means margin of 1 REM, right? And let me save and see if it looks better. Oh, it looks a little bigger, right? It looks a little bigger. That means I just have to give it padding on X and Y axis and not on the top and right? Basically, I don't have to give it padding all around. So let me just give it padding on the X axis only, right? So that I make it a little, so because it has taken padding all around, right? That is why it is looking a little ugly and looking a little more bigger, right, than we expect it to be. So let me just give it on x-axis px4, right? If I write px4, hope you are understanding this. Be patient. If you are not understanding this, what am I doing over here? I am just giving it on the right and left, right, on the x-axis. Got it? Px, oh my God, it became a little very short, right? It just took. So what I can do is let me reduce it, right? Let me give it, px is fine, right? Let me give it on the y-axis, let me give it a little lesser, right? If I give py of 2, save it, cool, right? Now it looks good. On the x-axis, I have given it 4, right? That means 1 REM. And on py, I have given it 0.5 REM, right? When you will play with it, right? When you will play with, let me tell you, first of all, I am not an expert in Tailwind. I am also learning it. I am also using it for the first time. That is why I am also struggling with it. But that does not mean I don't want to use it. Let's use it and see if it is making our life easier or not. If we were not using Tailwind, what we had to do is we had to go to index.css files and try this ourselves, right? We would have written padding top, padding bottom, and all this ourselves. Tailwind is giving us a shortcut method of writing CSS. And on the fly, right? On the fly means when I'm creating a button, I can directly write a class name at that point itself, right? We don't have to go between JS files and HTML files and CSS files again and again to modify our buttons, right? So it is beneficial. It is very, very beneficial if you see it in this perspective, right? If you understand these classes well, it will make your life a lot easier, right? So similarly, we have got this padding. See, we have got this input box. We have got this search button. Cool. So now, let's go back to top rated restaurants, right? This is also a button, right? I think this is also a button. So top rated restaurant, where is it? Okay. Here is our top rated restaurant button. right? So let me make this filter as a flex, right? And it will come on the side, right? It will come side by side. This top rated restaurant is also a button, isn't it? So let's modify this top rated. This is the filter btn, so I don't need this class anymore. Let's give the similar kind of css, right? Just like search button, we have this top rated restaurant button. So let's give it, right? Let's give it a padding, right? Padding of x of 4, right? Similarly, and padding of y of 2, right? And let me also give it some background color as gray or something, right? Let me give it as gray, right? BG gray, right? BG gray 50, right? Let's give it maybe BG gray 50 or 100. Let's give it 100, right? Let me save it and see. See this, we have got this. So why it has become big? Because it is taking the full width of the parent, right? So it is taking the full width of the parent because it is not wrapped inside a div. Let us just wrap it inside a div, right? So let us just wrap it inside a div, and let's put this button inside this div over here, right? If I put this button inside this div, and I'll give this div, right? I'll give this parent div the same class name as we gave it for the search items, right? Let's give it like this, right? So now it is wrapped inside the div. Now it is looking much more better, right? Now we just have to align it properly. How to align this properly, right? We already know I can do my flex, and I can do it flex and then item center, right? Item center. So when you will do this item center, it became like it came in a straight line, right? Now what we can do is, suppose if we have to give round corners to our buttons, right? How do we give round corners to our button? Let us just see how we can give round corners to our button. So let's go back to our search button, right? Here is our search button. Where is it? This is our search button. Let's give it round corner. So I will write rounded, right? So I have already get these classes. See this. Rounded SM, rounded medium, rounded large. So let's give it rounded LG and let's see how it looks, right? If I give it rounded LG, see this. It made the button look like, see this, see the corner of this button. It became like this, isn't it? How cool it looks, right? We have just given one class rounded LG and it made our buttons look curved, right? The corners are now rounded, isn't it? Let's suppose if I had given rounded XL, right? Let's see how XL looks, right? Rounded XL. So if I save it, see this, it has become more rounded. Let's give it rounded 2XL, right? If I write rounded 2XL, see this, it has become more rounded. It is not looking that great, isn't it? Which button is looking good? Let's give it rounded LG, right? I think LG was looking much better. So rounded LG, right? See this. Rounded LG is cool, right? Similarly, let's give rounded LG to top rated restaurant also, isn't it? Why not? So what I am trying to say is, if you know these class names, right? If you know these class names and if you are using these extension, it will help you a lot, right? This extension will suggest a lot of things, right? You don't have to remember everything, right? I'm telling you, you don't have to remember everything, all these CSS classes and all these things, right? Now let us just work on building these cards, right? Let us just work on building these cards, right? Where are these cards? These cards are basically inside our component, right? Restro card, right? So this is our restro card component. Okay, so first of all, always, I always start by giving margin padding, right? That's a good way to start with. M4 and then P4, right? Margin padding, right? Best way to start. Margin padding. I have given some margin padding. Now let me give it a width also, right? Let me give it a width of let's give it the card width of 200px or something. Yes. So now suppose if I have to give a width of 200px, right? And now first of all, what I will do is I will write W and then hyphen, and then I will try to find out does 200px exist, right? So see, W48 is 192px, W52 is 208px. What if there is a use case where I have to give it specific px? Suppose if I had to give it 200px, no matter what, I just have to give it hard-coded 200px. I don't want to give it and 192px or 208px. I want to give it like 200px. There is no class for it. So if you ever don't have a class for a certain hard-coded value, what you can do is you can write it like this, right? You can use these parentheses, you can use these square brackets, and inside these square brackets, if you specify 200px, so it will take it as a hard-coded size. Right? Instead of writing W48, W50, W52, whatever it is, you can also write it like this. W hyphen in the square brackets 200px. That is how you make dynamic classes in this Tailwind. Right? This is a feature. I wanted to show it to you. That's how we do it. Right? Generally, whenever possible, try to use the classes which Tailwind is offering to us. But suppose you can get into a use case where you specifically have to use a certain size, right? Specifically have to use it, then you can make your own size styles as well, right? So you are not feeling handicapped that I always have to use Tailwind classes. You can modify these Tailwind classes as well, right? And if I make it 200px like this, it will take the width of 200px like this, right? See this. Our card has become 200px wide. Right? So our card has become 200px wide. Isn't it? And now let's make it a little more wide, right? Not 200px is looking very small, right? Very tiny. So let's make it 250px maybe, right? So let's make it 250px. So now it is looking good, right? Now it is looking good. And now these cards are coming one below the other, right? Let's make our card become on the side by side. Let's make our cards come side by side. What class do we use? So I will make the whole container as flex, and then I will like make it flex, right? Let's make it flex. So let me go to the restaurant card component. Okay, here is it, right? Rest container, right? This is the rest container, restaurant container. Let's make it flex, right? Flex, if I do flex, see this, they have come side by side, but the problem is it has gone all over here, right? It has gone all over here. So now let me get it on the next, right? How do we do it? I will do a flex wrap. So I don't know how to do a flex wrap, right? I don't know how to do a flex wrap in Tailwind. I will just write wrap over here, right? If I write wrap, so I can do a flex wrap. See this? So Tailwind CSS extension is very, very helpful to us. You know, if you see it clearly, I am just writing wrap. You know, I am just writing wrap over here, and it is doing a wildcard match. See this? It is suggesting that you can use flex wrap. You can use flex wrap reverse. Right? So it is searching from all the classes that Tailwind offers to us, and it is suggesting us that you can use either of them. So I can choose flex wrap, right? And I can save it, and let's see if we get the desired output or not. Right? So if I do flex wrap, now see this. It has come one below the other. And do you see, my dear friends, in such a short amount of time, we have made our cards look much beautiful, isn't it? We have made our cards look much beautiful. Isn't our website looking beautiful? Right? And we have done this. How much time I have taken, right? It has just been half an hour and we have customized. Our app is looking much more beautiful than before, isn't it? It was faster, isn't it? Right? Now, you would say, Akshay, because you remember the classes, that's why it is faster for you. Yes, that is what I am telling you. Initial time taken to remember these classes is a little more, right? The initial learning curve is a little high. But once you get used to of these classes, your life becomes very easy. Because most of the times we are using the normal CSS, right? Padding, margin, colors, borders, and all that stuff, right? So once you start using it, it starts to get very easy for you. I am telling you, you must be thinking that Akshay, you have been using Tailwind since a lot of time. That is why you have become better at it. No, I am not better at Tailwind. I have just used very less Tailwind in my code. I have never used Tailwind in the production, let me tell you. I am just using Tailwind to teach you. And Tailwind is catching popularity because developers are liking it. That is why I am teaching you Tailwind inside Namaste React. Otherwise, I could have taught anything, right? Material UI, Chakra UI, and all that other stuff. No, I wanted to teach you the latest thing. Who knows that tomorrow, in all the industry, everybody start using Tailwind? Because Tailwind is powerful in a way. We will discuss about pros and cons of Tailwind later, but let's see. Let's try to write more of Tailwind. And let's try to see how fast it is to do this, right? Let's make our card look more better, right? So let's make some rounded corners of our card. Can we do that? Let's do that, right? Or maybe let's make the rounded corner of the images inside the card, right? Let's do that, right? Inside our card, in the images, let me make it rounded corner or something, right? It will look good, right? If these corners are rounded, maybe let's try. I'm not a very good design expert, right? But then I'm just trying out stuff, right? Rounded. I don't have to put a class name over here, go to my CSS file, write CSS for that class name. I can do it right away. I can experiment stuff. I can do that rounded and a very less rounded, right? Small, rounded, small. See this. Oh, did it even take? Not sure. Let me give it LG, right? If I give it rounded LG, yep, it is taking. Now see this. These images are looking much better, right? These images have a rounded corner now inside the card. See this. These images are rounded corner. It looks better, right? Let me also make our cards rounded maybe, right? Can we make our cards rounded? Let's make our cards rounded, right? Rounded LG or something, right? Let's make it rounded LG. See this, our cards have become rounded now. Let's make the font bold over here, right? Let's make the font of the restaurant name bold, right? We can hardly read this, right? We can hardly read this Leon's Burgers and Wings, right? So let me make this name as bold, right? If I write bold, so sometimes there is some weird error in this extension. Sometimes it does not give you suggestions. Like it is not giving me suggestions right now. So if it does not give you suggestions, in the Mac, use Control and Spacebar. If you use Control plus Spacebar, it starts giving you suggestions. Got it? So I am using Mac OS. I am using Apple, right? So I am using Control and Spacebar. It starts giving you suggestions. Sometimes there is a bug in this extension. I hope it will be fixed very soon. But suppose if you are also facing these bugs, I was using Tailwind, so I am facing this bug a lot of times, right? So it does not give you suggestions automatically. If it does not give you, use Control and Spacebar. In Windows also it must be something similar, right? Control plus Spacebar, right? Over here it is Control plus Spacebar. So I will start writing font bold, right? So I can write font bold. And if I write bold or font bold, it will just make my font bold. See this. It has made the font bold over here. Right? Easy, right? And I can give this some padding also, right? Let me give it some padding also, because it's looking very sticky, right? It's sticking everywhere, right? It's sticking. Let me give it padding from top and bottom, right? Let me give it padding from top and bottom. How to give it from top and bottom? Y-axis. How to give padding at y-axis? PY. You are absolutely right. Right? You are also remembering it now, right? It's not that hard, isn't it? PY, right? See this. We have got this padding from top and bottom. Isn't it? We can also increase the size. Suppose if I have to increase the size, so there is a class known as text, and then I can write text XL, right? It will make the text extra large. I can make the text LG. It will make the text large. I can make the text XL. It will make the text extra large, right? Let me save it. See this. Now our name of the restaurant has become a little larger, right? Extra large is looking a little more large, right? Let me make it large only, LG, right? That would make more sense. LG, right? See this. Now they are looking better. So what I am trying to say is that Tailwind comes with an initial learning curve, but once you start using Tailwind, it will make your life easier. I am speaking while coding, and still within half an hour I have built this UI, right? You remember I have deleted all the CSS from the CSS file index.css. I am writing it from scratch. I have written the whole CSS from scratch. And see how beautiful we have made this within such a short span of time. I don't know if you are realizing the power of this or not, but trust me, this makes our development process very fast. It makes the development process very fast. Now, I was discussing this with my friends and colleagues, right? Colleagues from my previous companies. They are very good front-end developers, and right, I was just taking their advice, right? What are your opinions on Tailwind CSS? And I was just talking to them, and let me tell you, a lot of people, right, we were having a healthy discussion, and a lot of people have a positive side to it, and a lot of people were very optimistic about it, and a lot of people were very pessimist about it, right? Because Tailwind CSS has come up with some pros and some cons, right? And let us discuss all of those, right? So that you can make better informed decision. So first of all, let me give you a disclaimer that I am not promoting Tailwind CSS, and I am not even demotivating you that you don't use Tailwind. I am just giving you my opinion, right? I personally really like Tailwind CSS. I have my own pros and cons for it, right? Let me tell you the pros and cons which I feel that are my pros and cons. First pros about it is I don't have to move between files. Earlier, how I was writing CSS was I was writing a class name over here, right? I was writing a class name, going back to CSS file, writing exact CSS padding, colon, and then px and all that stuff. Tailwind is taking care of all of this. It just comes with a little bit of initial learning curve, and then it will make our life very, very easy. I am telling you that I have just used Tailwind to teach, right? I have just taught Tailwind, right? I have not used Tailwind in any of my personal projects. I have not used Tailwind in any of the companies I have worked for. I have not used Tailwind for production ever. But I have just used Tailwind very less. But when I have used Tailwind for very less period of time also, I am started liking it. Earlier, it was a pain in ass for me. It was very painful for me, but when I started using it, I am kind of developing a taste of Tailwind. I've started liking it, to be very honest. I am liking Tailwind. And trust me, if I will ever build next project, right? If I will build another project, right? Whenever I will build another personal project, I will definitely use Tailwind there. I will not use Material UI or Bootstrap or any other frameworks. I will use Tailwind. Because I'm liking it. It gives me a lot of superpowers, right? So this is my opinion about Tailwind. What I don't like about Tailwind is that it just, when you are writing Tailwind, right? So sometimes you are writing it inside over here, right? So when you have to apply a lot of CSS to a class, right? Suppose if I have to apply a lot of CSS to this card. So what will happen is, suppose if I have to give it shadow, if I have to give it borders, if I have to give it click, if I have to give it margins, background color, this, that, so much CSS, I have to write classes for each and every small thing. And that makes our code look ugly. Right? What am I talking about? I'll give you an example. Let's go to Tailwind CSS website and let me go to the homepage. So let me go to components over here, right? I will show you pre-built components that Tailwind offers, right? So similar to Bootstrap and other frameworks, right? So Tailwind also offers you pre-built components, right? Suppose if you have to create a button, so it will give you pre-built code that you can directly copy paste and use it, right? So it makes your life easier, right? It gives you components, right? Suppose if you have to make this, if you have to make this kind of UI, if you have to make a table, if you have to make this select box, if you have to make date picker and all that stuff, Tailwind offers you a lot of UI over it, right? So let me just browse some of its component and I'll tell you the major disadvantage which I found inside Tailwind, right? Which I personally feel it's a very pain in ass, right? So let me just show you some let me just show you some, maybe some component, right? Let's take an example. Okay, so let's take an example of this, right? So if I go over here, right, suppose if you have to build a UI like this, right, if you have to build a UI like this, if you have a shopping cart, let's see the code for this. See this, your code will look something like this. And if you will see it clearly, right, our code looks ugly, isn't it? Our class names goes so long. See this, it kind of looks ugly. Just see this, right? Sometimes when we are writing a lot of classes, right, so our code goes so big, right? See this line, see this particular line. This particular line is writing a lot of CSS over here, right? Flex, it has used cursor pointer, it has used item center, it has used justify center, and a lot of things, right? So when you write classes like this, sometimes your JS code will become ugly, it will become lengthy. Got it? So it is kind of like a con. See this, sometimes it is even more long. See this kind of thing. See this label, this line is so long. See this, how much CSS they have put in over here, how much CSS, right? So what I'm trying to say is, sometimes now, in Tailwind, if we try to understand, right, properly, what we are trying to do is we are trying to merge our CSS file or CSS code inside our HTML or JSX file, right? We are trying to put in some CSS code inside our JSX file in form of classes. So what happens is, when you put that, so our JS file becomes overloaded with these CSS classes, right? So the code, I feel that the code becomes a little less readable. But apart from that, everything else is super amazing about Tailwind. This is the only, the two major disadvantages. It makes the code look a little ugly. And the first disadvantage is it comes with an initial learning curve. Apart from these two disadvantages, I don't see a disadvantage in Tailwind. I just love it. And let me tell you, I am going to use it in the next project, whatever I may going to build, right? Whatever I may build later on, right? I'm talking about my personal project, not this course or something, right? If I want to build some personal project, I will definitely use Tailwind. That is how, right? I'm just telling you that I like it so much, right? But then, yes, it makes the code look a little ugly, right? Think of it, right? Think of reading this code, right? It because of these class names, it makes it look a little ugly, but I am okay with it, right? Because it is offering a faster development for me. Got it? But this does not mean that I am pushing to use it, right? I am pushing you to use it. It's upon your call whether you want to use it or not. But what I want to say is, please, 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 when you are doing assignment, please use Tailwind, right? Unless you use it, how will you make your own opinion, right? Just don't watch my video and make an opinion about Tailwind. Use it. You might like it, you might not like it. It's your call to take. I want you all to use Tailwind and write down in the comments. I want to know. Go to the Discord server, write down over here, write down in the comments whether you like Tailwind or not. Whether you like Tailwind or not, I would love to hear from you. I would love to hear whether you will use Tailwind in your future projects or not. Right? I want to have your call on this. I want to teach Tailwind. That is why I wanted to teach you. And personally, I like it. Right? So this is how the code will look. Otherwise, it comes with a lot of amazing stuff, right? Now, when I am talking about the advantages of Tailwind CSS, let me tell you one more important advantage that Tailwind CSS offers to us. That is that Tailwind CSS is very lightweight. When I say it is very lightweight, that means that suppose in our code, right? Suppose in our code, I am just using these 5-6 class names. Suppose I am using M4, P4, Flex, Item Center. So when Parcel will make the bundle of CSS, right? When Parcel will make the bundle of CSS, it will only include the CSS that is required on our web page. What do I mean by that is, see, Tailwind library has thousands of CSS classes, right? Thousands of CSS classes. So, but we are not going to import thousands of CSS classes onto our web page when I am loading our app. It will only import the CSS that is absolutely required for our app. Suppose if I have not used shadow anywhere, right? Suppose if I have not used shadow anywhere in my app, so shadow code will not be there. Shadow CSS will never be there in your app, right? Right? But if so, why I'm telling you all this is because it's very dynamic. It will only include the CSS that is required, minimum CSS, right? Minimum CSS, only the CSS that you are using. That is a major advantage, my dear friends. I'm telling you, this is a very major advantage. Suppose if you are using M4 over here and you have written one more class M4, right? So it will just include one time, right? This was the question, a lot of students, last time when I was teaching Tailwind, so a lot of students asked me, Akshay, we have used M4 a lot of times, we have used P4 a lot of times, will it include padding margin like 4 times whenever, like how many times we have used it? No, it will just include one M4 class, and that M4 class will be just written one. So if you are using M4 100 times in your code, it will just import one class out of it. Right? So it is very lightweight, very, very lightweight, I'm telling you. I have seen UI libraries and framework, right? CSS libraries and framework, they just dump all the code onto your browser. Right? And all the classes that they have, all the components, everything they have is into your project, right? So it keeps the bundle size small. It is very lightweight. Tailwind is very, very lightweight, right? This is one major advantage of Tailwind CSS. And there are so many more advantages if you just go to the website, right? Go to this website, scroll down, see, right? It will tell you all the advantages of Tailwind CSS. Let me explore it for you, right? Let us read it. Right? First of all, you can build whatever you want to, right? See this, build whatever you want to. If you will think that, okay, with these classes I can't build complex UI, you can build complex UI. See how beautiful this looks, right? They have given you examples, right? See, you can build complex UI some people feel that, okay, with these classes I am restricted, right? I am bounded, I am handicapped, I can't use my imagination to create something new. No, you can build whatever you want to. There is a class for everything that you can think of. Everything. You can use class for hover also, right? So you must be thinking that, okay, how can I put a class name if I hover onto this, it should change color? Yes, you can put that. You can put that hover kind of things, right? Suppose if I take my mouse onto this card, it should become a little darker, bold or something. You can build that. You can build that. Let me show it to you, right? Let's do that. I forgot to show it to you, right? So if I hover my card, it should just change something, right? Let's do this, right? So if I go to my restaurant card, how do I write this? So suppose if I want to write some CSS on hover, I will write, see this, I will write hover, right? Hover and colon. Now whatever CSS I will write, it will be implemented on hover, right? If I hover, then I want let's make the background color to something, right? Let's make the background to maybe gray, right? Maybe darker shade of gray, right? Maybe let's make it background gray 400, right? So what does 400 means? Basically, see, all the colors go to 900, right? If you will see, all the colors go to not even 900, it goes beyond 900, 950, right? So as the number increases, it increases the solidness, right, of that color, right? It makes the color look more bolder, right? So if I'll use background BG gray 400, that means I'm using a darker shade of it, right? So go back, right? Let me hover it, right? If I hover it, it is not changing the background color. Why? It's not changing the background color. Why? Let me make it background color as 900. Maybe I am not putting the right class. Okay. There's some issue with this. Why? Let me just figure this out. Oh, we have found a bug because we have given the background color over here, right? I have hard-coded this background color. I don't want to use this background color like this, right? Sorry, my bad, right? So if I'll use it like this, see this, right? If I'll go back, see this. Now it has become very ugly. Okay, so now that background color has also gone, right? So how do I write it? Let me just show it to you. If I have to give it, see this, what I'm writing is background gray 50, right? In normal case, when I hover it, turn it to background gray 200, right? Normally, right, when I'm not hovering over it, just use background gray 50. When I'm hovering on it, use background gray 200. Got it? So it is background, see this, right? If I am hovering on it, it is background gray 200, right? Otherwise it is background gray 50. 50 is barely visible. Let's make it 100 maybe, right? Let's make it 100. And see this, now background gray 100. If I hover on it, it becomes darker, right? If so similarly, you can give CSS, whatever you can think of, you can do this inside Tailwind, right? So that is why Tailwind is telling you that build whatever you want seriously, right? You can, it can be used to build complex UIs as well, right? See this, it's tiny, never shipped unused CSS. See this, if I'm writing flex, it is just adding this CSS. It will not ship a class that is, see this, it is rebuilding again and again, right? It is rebuilding again and again. What I'm trying to show is, whenever you add some class to your app, then only it adds to the CSS file. It does not bloats up your bundle, right? It is very amazing feature. I don't know how to emphasize more on this, but it is a very important feature. I have seen code bases where people have included like thousands of classes, and those classes are redundant. I'll tell you, right? What happens is, I'll tell you a story, right? Take a moment, right, to listen to me, what I'm trying to say. Suppose if 10 developers are working. I am a developer. I want to make my button green. So I will add a class btn-green and I will make a background color green, right? I will make the button green and I have shipped the code. Now what happens is, another developer in my team, right, he also wants to make the button green. So he will definitely not put an effort to find out whether there is a green button already there in our app or not, whether somebody has made a green button or not, and what is the class for it. So he will write another class which is again creating the button green. So there is a lot of redundant CSS which ships in production. I have seen that happening. A lot of developers, right? There is a lot of redundant developers, lot of unused CSS there in the code, right? So Tailwind, using Tailwind, all the developers will come into a sync of writing code, right? All the developers will be kind of using similar kind of classes, right? Because whenever they have to give it padding, they will give it in a certain way, right? This is a very beautiful thing, right? No need of thinking about whether your CSS bundle will bloat or not, right? Only the CSS that you will use will be shipped. Very, very amazing advantage, right? Let's also see the more things, right? Just see this, right? Responsive everything, right? You can build responsive designs however you want to. You can write media queries as well, right? You can write media queries over here as well. Suppose if I want to load something on mobile, I will write SM. That means small. Medium devices. LG means large devices. Should I show you an example? Let me show you an example. I am not in any hurry. I am here to teach you. Let me show it to you, right? So we have this header color of pink, right? So suppose if I have my mobile phone, then my header color should change, right? How to write that? Let's go back to header code, right? So if I have, so I will change if my device is SM, right? If my device size is greater than SM, I will make my background color as yellow, right? BG yellow, right? Let's do that, right? Let's do that. See, if my device color is greater than smaller device, if my device color is greater than SM, right? Is greater than SM, make it yellow, right? Let's make my device size less than SM, right? So it will be pink. See this, right? So what it is trying to do is, if my device is greater than SM, right? Use this. background color yellow. Otherwise, use it as pink. Got it? If it is greater than SM, use this. If it is greater than LG, let me write it even more, right? It will be more clear to you. If my device size is greater than LG, it is greater than a larger device. So on larger device, make my background color is green. Let's make it green, right? Green 50. Okay, on the larger device. So let me just go pink, yellow, and then green. See this? Do you see this? So you can basically write different CSS for different type of devices. You can write different CSS for mobile phones, different CSS for tab, different CSS for your desktop application. You can customize whatever you wish to. Tailwind offers everything that you can think of. That is why I'm telling you, it's amazing, right? You can even configure light and dark themes also, right? See this. Let's go one by one, right? So there is hover and focus state. Suppose if you want to focus upon some input box and put some CSS, you can focus it. Everything that you can think of, Tailwind offers you. Worried about duplication? There will never be duplication of CSS, right? Read about it. Right? So CSS, and see this. This is the most amazing feature which I really like. Today, your website should always have a dark mode. A lot of people are moving from light mode to dark mode, right? All the websites, all the mainstream websites that you see always have a dark mode because people are preferring to use dark mode, right? So today, if you are building a web app and it does not have a dark mode, not acceptable, my dear friends. Not acceptable. Dark mode is necessary in today's time. If you are building UI, always made a dark mode. And it was a pain in our ass to write the code for dark mode as well. It used to be, I have built a dark mode feature for our existing app and it was such a pain. All the CSS was messed up. And it was a very painful activity. With Tailwind CSS, you can do that very easily. Very, very easily. Very easily. How? Just like we write hover or something, you can write dark. See this. Similarly, you know what you can do? See this. If you apply dark mode like this, right? So it automatically turns into dark and you can provide the CSS for dark mode over here like this. You can provide the CSS for dark mode over here along the go. Right? Along the go. How? Let me show it to you. See, let me show you an example. So right now, where is it? See this. This is H2, right? This H2 is, the text is text slate 500, right? And in dark mode, the color of this text is different, right? This is how you give the text color in dark mode. See this. On the light mode, the text color is text slate 500, right? This scaling CSS at Heroku utility class, right? This is text slate 500, right? This is text slate 500. Now when I'll move to dark mode, this is text slate 400. So what I'm trying to say is you can configure CSS differently for dark mode as well. So whenever you are writing components, right, how it makes our life easy, right? You can see this, right? Read all these things, right? Read all the website. You will be amazed by the features that Tailwind is offering to us. But the best part that I like is when I'm building a new component. Suppose I'm building a Shimmer UI, right? Or maybe I'm building a user component, right? I can write CSS on the go, right? Suppose I'm creating a user card, I can directly write margin 4, padding 4, and I can give it a background color of something, right? Background slate or background gray of 50. And I can give it a rounded corner on the card, rounded LG. So see, when I'm thinking about building that card, right? Now you can think, right? How I am building that card? I can give CSS on the fly. That is the most important superpower. You don't have to go back and forth between your CSS files and all that stuff. And everything happens very fast. Just a little initial learning curve and it will make your life easier. Trust me, my dear friends. I am advocating about Tailwind CSS because I want you to use it in your project, at least the project that you will build inside Namaste React. Go ahead, use Tailwind. I am just tired of explaining why it is very useful, what is pros, what are cons. I have also explained the cons of it. I am not pushing you to make an opinion whether it is good or bad, right? Make your opinion only after you use it. But trust me, in my opinion, I just love Tailwind. Right? So this is what it was in today's episode. I wanted to discuss all these things, all these cool things that, in front-end market, right? In front-end community, things come very fast and things go away very fast. Today we are using Tailwind. 1 year down the line, maybe we are not using Tailwind, or maybe 1 year down the line, Tailwind will become mainstream that everybody is using Tailwind, right? So what I would try to say is that always try to keep up with the technology, always try to use new things that comes into market. That is why I wanted to teach Tailwind to all the students of Namaste React batch, right? That is why I chose to use Tailwind to write CSS over here, and hope you would have enjoyed it, hope you would have liked it. And now you have not used Tailwind ever, right? So just go back, go to your project, try to make your code look beautiful. Trust me, you can do a lot of things over here. I have just, in half an hour, 1 hour, I have just tried to do my best to explain you all the type of features that Tailwind has to offer, right? So what I am trying to say is go back, do your homework, make your app, delete all the CSS code, install Tailwind into it, and start using Tailwind classes, right? Whenever you are stuck, use this IntelliSense extension, right? Use this Tailwind extension. It is very, very important. And then if you find it very tough, then go to that website, Tailwind's website, search on it, right? Tailwind has a very good website. Tailwind has a very good search option also, right? If you want to search for something, right? Suppose if you want to search how to give a border, so just search for it. How to give a border width, border style, border radius, border color. Tailwind has a very good search, right? This is a very cool search which I found out. So you can search it over here also. Otherwise, once you have started using it, you will not need to go to Tailwind website again to search for the class names, okay? So you will be able to do it in your code, IntelliSense VS Code itself. Right? So this is all in this episode. Hope you would have liked it. Hope you would have got some motivation to start using Tailwind. Please use it. And then once you have used Tailwind, then go ahead, go and comment down below whether you like Tailwind or not. You have to answer 2 questions. Whether you like Tailwind or not, and what was your experience, right? First is your experience of Tailwind. And then one more question is that whether will you use Tailwind in your future projects or not? Right? Did you like it enough, right? Or whether you won't use it or whether you will use it, right? Just write it down. I would love to read your opinion. I would love to hear it, right? And thank you so much for watching this video. And that's all in this video. And thanks for watching, and see you in the next episode very soon. Bye-bye. Take care. Thanks for watching.